The number of AI agents are doubling or quadrupling at a rate beyond the number of humans you have within your company. Where I meant to go there is the number of identities associated with the agents are also bubbling up. And that significantly increases the security risk within your company. If any threat actor could gain access to those non-human identities or agentic identities, they are also able to access all the data those agents have access to.
Thank you, everybody, for joining PM Exercise's community sessions. We're very excited to have Dilip, who's a product manager at Salesforce, talk to us about identity foundations for AI products and PMs. Just before we start, I wanted to let you know that we have a number of AI courses at Product Management Exercises. We have AI Product Manager course, which is live sessions conducted by Corey, who's from Amazon, and Kai, who's the lead PM at Uber. And it's a 5-week course, very intensive, and we have a lot of successful graduates from the program. That'll be later in October. We've got one which we are teaching you how to build MVPs quickly. So it's a 2-week course, and essentially how to sort of escape the engineering bottleneck and ship MVPs quickly to test your ideas and save resources for your company or your ideas on the side. How to build AI agents as a product manager for yourself in order to make your own role as a product manager easier. And finally, we offer our Build AI and AI PM courses asynchronous. So if you'd like to do it in your own time, I'll put links in the chat. But without further ado, Dilip, I don't want to take up time from your amazing presentation. Very excited to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aida. We'll get started without further ado. Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Today's session is going to be about identity foundations for AI products or PMs. Let's dive in and figure out what does it really mean. Before we get started, I just want to share a little background of myself and how it maps to this session. I'm currently working as a senior product manager at Salesforce. I lead the charter for connectivity in a product called Data Cloud. At Salesforce, Data Cloud is our AI grounding platform, I would say. So Data Cloud powers all of the RAG and search experiences within CRM product suite at Salesforce. My charter is to bring in the data into Data Cloud at the moment, but I'm also fortunate enough to get exposed to all of the AI work that's happening at Salesforce because of where I'm strategically positioned. Prior to my current role, I've also spent time both at Salesforce and Cisco leading identity and access management charters at these companies. So I had this experience which intersects both with the identity landscape and the AI landscape. So this session is to try and educate both AI PMs on how, what kind of identity concepts you need to be aware of. I felt like that's one of the areas which is, ignored more often. And if there are any people with identity background on the call, they might be able to relate to how their experience maps to the AI, fast evolving AI ML world. That was my background for this session. So today we are there is a lot of material to cover. Broadly, we'll talk about why identity matters to you as a AI/ML PM. We'll also review a few popular operating models in the AML space, and we'll also review a few popular operating models in the identity space. Beyond that, we'll take a look at a playbook that I've tried curating for you, and we'll wrap up and do Q&A. So let's let's dive into it. Let's start with why does identity matter for you as a PM operating in the AML space? Traditional, I think there are a lot of PMs on this call already who might have shipped some form of AI products within your company, be it a simple chatbot or a complex agent-to-agent product. But the moment you start rolling it out to large enterprise customers, especially if you're selling a solution as a product, that's where identity really matters. Your enterprise customers would ideally not buy those products if you are unable to answer questions like how can my user log into your product securely? Are their sessions monitored? How can I revoke access for a particular user? How can I revoke access for a particular session? All these questions pop up in security reviews during enterprise buying and selling process. I think the bar is much lower if you are deploying an identity product within your company because it's a fast evolving space. But the moment you start looking at selling products to enterprise companies, identity becomes a really pivotal part of your security strategy. I think for some of you who have been in those deals, you know that security review is a big part of enterprise deals, and identity plays a really important role there. That's where it strategically fits into the charter. I also want to spend a little time on how traditional SaaS and AI products differ, and especially in the context of identity. Um, uh, AI products, as you know, I think they have a lot of autonomy. As in, if you visit a traditional SaaS application with a web page, you as a PM would know to render this web page, we need access to so and so data sets behind the scenes. That's very deterministic. But in the case of AI, I don't think you can come up with a very deterministic permission. You would end up casting a really wide net, because AI might act differently in different situations, and for different users. It might be accessing different data sets for different users, etc. Because of the lack of predictability, you would also end up casting a wider net on what kind of permissions you give to the AI agents. That also increases your security risk in turn. The AI agents, the number of AI agents are doubling or quadrupling at a rate beyond the number of humans you have within your company. Where I meant to go there is the number of identities associated with the agents are also bubbling up. And that significantly increases the security risk within your company. If any threat actor could gain access to those non-human identities or agentic identities, they are also able to access all the data those agents have access to. So, and I think we've already talked about the third point. There are a lot of architectures evolving within the agentic ecosystem. There are agent-to-agent communications. There are plain chatbots and whatnot, and it's a fast evolving space. I think these are the high level points you need to keep in mind when it comes to how does traditional SaaS and AI products differ in terms of identity space. And As far as business impact goes, if you don't if you're not catering to some of these identity features within your product, I think it's fair to say your business enterprise deals would be blocked. You're also exposing yourself to security incidents and insider risk. If even if insiders gain access to your agentic identities, and if they are able to access some of the data that these agents have access to, and if you are not having proper guardrails around what kind of permissions they have, etc., then your security risk is much wider than what you think. Obviously, it would also, if there is a breach, it would expose you to compliance findings and fines. There is a risk of a lateral movement, as in um, by gaining access to one identity, threat actors in the past have gotten access to other areas within your company. And Yeah, I think this is a good business impact statement. Let's spend some time understanding what are the popular AML operating models. That way, if there are any people on the call who are new to AML, I think they can get up to speed with that. Um, There are, in my experience, most of the enterprises are shipping two kinds of agents today. Interactive chatbots. So you would go to a help kind of page, and you can interact with documents, a chatbot instead of documents. And then there are these companies who are trying to experiment with autonomous AI agents, wherein agents could act on behalf of humans, with humans in the loop, obviously. I think recently we have seen a few examples of Capital One shipping one such agent. Yeah, I think these are the two popular models in my experience, but more models are coming up every day. We see news about it every day. In this context, a few architectures have evolved. One is RAG. I'm sure you have already heard about it. And another pattern is human in the loop AI agents. And another pattern is asynchronous communication between an end-to-end user experience. I have more material coming up and we'll walk through these in detail. So let's dive into them. I think, as you know, the traditional generative AI was trained on the data that was available on the internet. But the same Gen AI would not be able to answer questions when it comes to the enterprise context, because enterprises have data that is not exposed to the internet. It's sitting in their GitHub, Jira files, Google Drive, SharePoint, and all these documents that are only internal to the company. You would never find them outside. So if these LLMs need to start looking into this data and being able to answer the questions accurately in that context, you need a way to expose the data to the LLMs. And retrieval augmented generation was this concept that was invented to meet this specific need. And we'll come to how this name was also coined. In this architecture, before your prompt as a user reaches the LLM, there is a middleware involved, and this middleware is looking into your documents, your enterprise documents, through a means of a vector DB, which is able to chunk and embed your data. And this vector DB is able to support semantic search of your prompts and able to retrieve the documents that are relevant to your prompt exactly. And these documents are then inserted to the LLM along with your prompt, so that the right output is generated. That way LLM has the context. So retrieval refers to the process of retrieving the documents, and augmentation is the process of augmenting the generated output. So yeah, I think that's how the RAG architecture evolved. The another pattern is human in the loop flows. With companies that are experimenting with agents that are able to take actions on behalf of the humans, they're also making sure there are humans in the loop if there are sensitive actions in the picture. And In these flows, humans act as feedback loop, and they're able to take decisions like approve, deny, or provide feedback to the action that the agent is about to take. These flows, the point I would like to highlight here is that what I've been observing is that these flows are asynchronous in nature, as in the original input to the flow would have been generated a few days ago, and the LLM would probably have acted on it today. And probably there is an incident it's monitoring, and it triggered an approval workflow, and the human is in the loop to approve it. And based on that approval, the LLM is able to take certain action. We have a live demo a little down the lane, and we'll walk through all of these scenarios in a more live fashion. So you would be able to get that. There are also protocols evolving to support agent-to-agent communications. IBM came up with ACP protocol along with that MCP was also coined. All of these protocols are supporting agent-to-agent communications, and multi-agent ecosystem is slowly evolving. We'll take a pause here on the agentic world, and now I want to bring you back to the identity world. And I think it'll be good for you to get exposed to the lingo of the identity space. At which point you can go and explore some of the concepts that interest you on your own. My goal here is to make sure you're well versed with the concepts that you need to be aware of as a PM operating in the identity space. Sorry, I mean AI space. Um, so a lot of you have already heard about authentication, authorization, and governance, and we'll get into more details up next. Authentication refers to the process of products trying to figure out who you are. In a really simple fashion, if you visit a bar, there is a person at the door trying to look at your driver's license and figuring out if you are the person who hold if the person coming in is the same person that holds the driver's ID. So that's the process of authentication. And authorization is the process of them letting you in, recognizing that you are more than 18 years older. So that's the process of authorization. And governance is all about observability and visibility into what you're doing, where you're doing, and when are you doing it. And these three pillars form a key, form really important aspects of how you are building an identity charter within your company. Let's take some time and deep dive into authentication. There are a bunch of concepts within the authentication space, and I wanna make you familiar with all these concepts. I think a lot of you on the call have good exposure to the AI world, and I don't want to spend a lot of time exposing you to the same concepts again, but I think you can use my expertise in helping you understand the IAM world better. That way you can go back and do something about it. Um, this is going to be a series of keywords and paradigms that I'm going to expose you to. Feel free to drop questions, and the way I've structured it, it will progressively make sense why these concepts are being introduced to you. For now, I would ask you try and listen through this, and we can take questions towards the end. So again, I'll go back. The next few slides are categorized into authentication, authorization, and governance. Let's start with authentication and figure out all the paradigms that exist in that space. SAML is one of the earlier protocols that evolved in the authentication space back in the day when the internet was booming and a lot of applications were evolving. Enterprises needed a way to support users logging into multiple applications without typing the same username and password. So both SAML and OpenID Connect were the protocols that came up to support single sign-on in enterprise ecosystems. I've purposefully dumbed the concept down here, but what you see here is what happens behind the scenes. A user is logging into a web application, and the web application redirects the user to an identity provider. Here, the identity provider could be something like Okta, Microsoft Entra ID, or Google, the google.com, or any of those identity providers you use within your company. And the IDP is responsible to authenticate you and pass back an assertion. An assertion is basically an IDP telling, I've authenticated Dilip. Dilip seems to be the right person. You can go ahead and let them into your application. And all of this process is cryptographically signed and working together. There are two keywords here. The entity providing the authentication is called identity provider, and the entity the user is trying to access is called service provider. Let's move on to the next paradigm, OpenID Connect. Like I mentioned before, OpenID Connect is a protocol that evolved to solve a similar need, which is single sign-on. But it also evolved in the context of when mobile applications started booming in. Um, After the 90s and in the 2000s, once the iPhone was shipped into the market, the number of mobile applications just literally quadrupled, and a lot of companies became mobile first. And the traditional SAML protocol did not meet the needs of the mobile developer ecosystem, and OpenID Connect was invented as a evolution to that. It's a much lighter protocol serving a similar need, which is why you would see that the authentication flow is quite similar. In this particular paradigm, the entity doing the authentication is called OpenID provider, and the entity the user is trying to access is called relaying party. These are just some keywords you can familiarize yourself with. That way, you can have a sensible conversation with your developers when you engage with them. And summarizing it, both these protocols are serving a similar purpose, which is they're trying to serve the needs of single sign-on. One protocol evolved to serve mobile needs more, and the other protocol is a legacy protocol, which originally was invented for web applications. Having said that, OpenID Connect is the modern protocol, and it is supported by a large number of web applications and mobile applications you see out there in the world. If you are building something from scratch, this is the protocol you should likely look into. Yeah. And the another paradigm that you should be aware of in the authentication space is multi-factor authentication and FIDO2 passkeys, passwordless. All these keywords come up in one single context, which is exposing passwordless authentication to your users. I think a lot of you have already, if you have a MacBook and if you're logging into google.com, you would see Google prompting you to register your fingerprint with Google. That way, you don't have to log in again and again whenever you sign up in new devices. And that entire experience is powered by that entire passwordless experience is powered by this protocol called FIDO2. Passkeys is a variant within this ecosystem. And as in a simple login flow, you would basically access a website. The website would redirect you to the passkey authenticator, and the authenticator would authenticate you with with the chosen passkey of your choice. It could be a YubiKey that's plugged into your laptop, or it could be a fingerprint that's on your Mac, or if you're on your mobile, depending on what FIDO mechanism your mobile supports, it could be a face ID recognition, or it could be a fingerprint on your Android mobile phone. All of these are multiple variants of the authentication mechanism supported in the passkey world. There are two high-level distinctions here. There are passkeys that are bound to a device, and there are passkeys that are bound to a user. The passkeys that are bound to a user can be synced across multiple devices. A good example is are the passkeys that exist on your iPhone. If you lose your phone and if you get a new phone, as long as your passkeys are synced to your Apple account, you can re-download them back, and you can log in to any website you have set up that passkey with. And then the other variant is there are device-bound passkeys. A good example is my touch fingerprint touch ID I have on my MacBook. If I lose this, I'm not going to be able to log into some of my applications I've registered it with. So yeah, and now let's spend some time understanding authorization. Um, you have earlier heard me talk about OpenID Connect. Now let's take a look into OAuth. OAuth and OpenID Connect go hand in hand. So what I meant to really say is authentication and authorization go hand in hand when you perform a login action. Authentication is really about the provider trying to figure out if you are the person you claim to be. And authorization is the process of the provider. By provider, I'm referring to the website here. The website getting a token that's letting the website access you whatever you're trying to access. So OAuth is the spec that really talks about the process of how to generate the token and how to pass it back to the entity that is requesting the token. And OpenID Connect is the spec that talks about how to communicate the user details that have logged in. So think of OAuth as a key and OpenID Connect as an ID card that's talking about who owns the key. When the entity who wants to authenticate you has both the key and the ID, they can confidently let you into their web application. And what you see when you log into Facebook, or if you are linking your bank account with a data provider or a data consumer, you would have noticed that you're consenting to your data being accessed, etc. All of those are built into the OAuth framework. So yeah, high level, that's about OAuth. You would have also heard about something called JWT. It's called JOT in short form. JOT is the token that's actually used when you successfully authenticate in an OpenID Connect or OAuth scenario. And before this standard existed, every identity provider had its own token format. And the consumers of those tokens had to figure out how to decrypt the token in a very tightly coupled fashion with the identity provider. As in, Google had one format, Facebook had one format, Okta had a format, etc. And this standard kind of uh, came up with a uniform way of trying to structure what information should be presented, how, and this is now a universally adopted standard in that world. Yeah, these are all the keywords you should remember in the context of authentication and authorization. I want to spend a few minutes trying to putting all of this together for you. This is a really nice explanation I borrowed from Byte. They have some really nice articles that you can refer to. When the internet originally evolved, username and password was the only form of authenticating to websites. And you had one username. If you had access to 10 different websites, you had 10 different usernames. You still do for in many cases today. But the problem is much less because you can access applications using your Facebook login or Google login today. And from that world, the tech landscape evolved to a space where they had session cookies and whatnot to control the login life cycle of the login. Prior to that, an application could not kick out an user if they wanted to. So the invention of session IDs and browser sessions, actually helped with login and logout processes. And in this ecosystem, protocols like SAML were invented. Like I said, like we spoke about in the OpenID world, SAML did not really support the mobile applications because it was XML heavy, and mobile applications already adopted a JSON kind of payload. And to cater to their needs, the token based authentication was involved. This was pre-OAuth and OpenID Connect. And in the same timeline, the token standardization was done. So the JOT as a standard evolved. And once this evolved to support single sign-on, Both OpenID Connect and SAML were adopted as a mechanism to support those needs. And the towards the end, this particular image talks about OAuth having different modes. What it really does is, depending on what kind of application you are building, OAuth has different flows to support you. You can dive into these details if you get there, but high level, just know that OAuth is a broad spec that covers a lot of authorization modes. And depending on the kind of application you are building and depending on where that application exists, OAuth has different recommendations for what to do about it. And all of these are those different recommendations. So, yeah. I think that ends the authentication part. I would like to spend some time on the authorization part now. And what a concept that you probably would have come across often in the authorization landscape is you would have heard about the keywords called ABAC, RBAC, and REBAC. ABAC refers to attribute-based access control. RBAC refers to role-based access control, and REBAC refers to relationship-based access control. Of these three models, Rebag is the newer kid in the block. And there is a protocol called OpenFGA, Open Fine Grained Authorization, that's backing this particular model. Popular identity companies like both Entra and Okta has come up with products that meet these needs. But let's take a quick look into what these authorization modes are and eventually we'll look at how these will be leveraged in your AI products as part of our live demo. You see in the ABAC world, typically there is a directory which has all of the users working in your company, or it has all the customers who are accessing your products. And those users have multiple attributes associated with them. For example, I probably am living in a country, and I have a gender, I have a department, etc., etc. And in the ABAC world, permissions are assigned depending on your user attributes. As in, you would see policies like if the user is in the US, let them access XYZ. Those are the kind of policies you would see in the ABAC world. And in the RBAC world, you would see that if the user belongs to a HR department, then allow them to access XYZ. If the user belongs to XYZ IT role, allow them to access XYZ. And these roles are, I would say, fictional concepts that you would have in your identity management system. And users are either manually or automatically assigned to these roles. And the access is based on these roles. Very high level, you can think of these as groups. Depending on which users are part of this role, they get the corresponding access that's defined in the role. And both these earlier models have been heavily used in the deterministic world, as in where you could uh, assign permissions to a user and they more or less stay static. There would be governance processes that would, enable the users to request new permissions or let your managers review what permissions you have, etc. But these processes, I would say, have been heavily used in the legacy world, and they're continuing to be used in the SaaS world even as of today. And relationship-based access control is something Google came up with as part of defining a flexible authorization schema for their Google suite of applications. They came up with a concept called Zanzibar, and a protocol was basically developed on top of it. In this model, you have the authorization is fully centralized and taken outside of the application. There is an API which the applications typically query every time they are about to render a page or about to take an action. And this API will tell the application whether the user is allowed to take that action or not. A good example is if I go to Google Drive, I can view certain folders. And let's say one of you has shared a file with me, it's going to dynamically pop up in my UI. And those relationships are made possible because of this authorization based this authorization model you see on the screen. Um, next up in the live demo up next, I'll show to you how this can help you in your AML products. Um, we spoke about this briefly. Governance is the process of figuring out how to grant access to your users or non-human entities, or and how to revoke them when they don't need it. This is the observability layer you'll have in your identity products or AML products. Um, Another concept I would like to introduce you to in the context of AML and identity space is a lot of your identity world is going to be dealing with non-human accounts. So any integration you would see between an agent and another agent or agent and a system, that is something that is supported by what we call a non-human account. We also call it non-human identities. These are not typically tied to a human being. And today, non-human accounts are widely adopted, even within your companies. If you have two APIs talking to each other, there is very likely that it is very likely that that communication is being facilitated via a non-human account. And that paradigm continues to exist in the AML ecosystem as well. Non-human accounts can look differently in different contexts. In one context, it can be a certificate. In another context, it can be an API key, etc., etc. In another context, it can be an account in your LDAP. This is something you need to be critically aware of, because non-human accounts will be the most sensitive accounts in your AML architecture. They will carry a lot of permissions, and any compromise made on these accounts is going to severely impact your uh, business in terms of the kind of data it would expose the users to, etc. So let me head on to next. I want to spend a little more time on how human and non-human accounts differ, so that you get the context well. As you know, human accounts are slow growing. A company grows probably linearly mostly, but non-human accounts blow up very quickly because of the number of agents you might be deploying within your companies, or the number of integrations you would have between your agents and downstream systems. Human accounts are centralized, as in there is a HR system where you are creating a user, and that would be the source of truth for human accounts. If you go to your Workday or Bamboo HR or whatever, you can always go and see, Dilip exists. He has been hired on XYZ date. He operates in this department, etc. But for a non-human account, no such centralized entity exists unless your company actually invests in creating one such ecosystem. And without creating that ecosystem, you would not have visibility into it. And lack of visibility would translate to a security gap. You cannot secure what you cannot see. So, yeah, this is one of the reasons I'm trying to spend more time on the non-human accounts here for you. And typically, only your HR folks can create human accounts, because the source of truth is Workday. There are not a lot of people who can access Workday and create a user there. There are probably very defined processes to it, but when it comes to non-human accounts, you would be surprised to see even within your company, no matter how how good of practices you might have. Sometimes you would find that there are not a lot of processes around this. A typical developer might be able to go and create a non-human account and let it access a bunch of downstream systems, and you would never know about it, or your IT would never know about it. So very quickly it would become a shadow IT. Yeah. Um, so until this point, we have gotten ourselves exposed to a lot of concepts. You saw the popular AML operating models, which is RAG-based systems and autonomous agents with asynchronous human in the loop processes. And then you also saw a bunch of identity lingo. I think now you should be able to tell what does authentication mean and what does authorization mean and where do all those keywords come into picture. And I think you should be able to confidently go and research some of these topics on your own and have conversations with your developers. Now I want to spend some time in helping you understand how those identity concepts we spoke about come into picture in your AI products. So I have a live demo. Let's take a look at it. So there is this app called Marketo that was developed by the folks at Auth0. I think they did a great job at building and sharing it to public. This is available on the internet, and this is something you can play around with as well. And let's take a look at it. Is my screen still visible?
Yes.
Okay. So as you see here, this is a web application, and the landing page is asking me to log in. If I would open this, I think it would open a new window. I'm not sure if you're able to see this window, but I have a window here which is asking me to log in with my Google account. I'm sure you have seen this in other products, so I'm not gonna try and share the screen, but this is exactly what OpenID Connect and OAuth are supposed to do. When I click on continue with Google, the website would redirect me to the Google login, and if I have a session, Google is gonna let me in, and this entire dance is enabled by means of the OpenID Connect. So if you are building a agent that's sitting on top of a web page, this is your first point of interaction. And if it's a really sensitive agent, and it's probably granting access to some sensitive information, then you should really be looking at adding additional security authentication on top of it. We spoke about FIDO. FIDO is a passwordless experience which is backed by a strong authentication device like YubiKey or Face ID on your mobile. Not only would FIDO reduce the friction for the users to log in and access your application, but it would also enable it would also reduce the threat surface within your application because you might no longer need to save the passwords. So that's a lot of fresh air to breathe. Even if you get hacked, no one will be able to get to your users and thereby access your user information within your company. Now let's assume the login was successful. I'm gonna get into this chat window, and you'll see that I'm gonna make some prompts here. Here, I'm starting with a prompt which is asking for a particular stock ticker's price. And this particular agent has a downstream LLM, which is again connected to the internet. So it's able to search the internet and give me current price for this stock ticker. Um, I think a lot of you have experience and understand how this works. So let me get to the next prompt. In the next prompt, I'm asking the agent to share a forecast for the stock ticker. Again, this information is generated by means of, sorry, I think I wanna do a new chart here because I was expecting something else. Give me a second, please. Okay. Unfortunately, the demo gods are not on my side, but I will fall back on a earlier chat I did during the day. So let me walk you through it. Again, we saw the first response, internet generated. The second response was asking me, where I was asking the agent to generate a forecast for the particular stock ticker. To generate this forecast, the system behind the scenes looked into a few documents, and it's actually citing you those documents 1, 2, 3 that are listed here. And this is your traditional RAG experience. There is a vector database behind the scenes which has chunked and embedded those documents, and the agent is able to surface this search result as a result of the semantic search platform you have behind the scenes. And there is certain permissions involved here. As you can see, I'm sure this particular agent has a ton of data it has access to. Back when I created this prompt, it did show me a pop-up here saying, would you like to access premium content? Okay. And the insights that were generated here were not from the premium content. And because I was not a paid subscriber, and I did not have access to that premium content, only the publicly available docs were shared with me, and the insights were corresponding to those publicly available docs. And the agent asked me, would you want to subscribe to premium content? And when I clicked yes, it did go ahead and dynamically behind the scenes not only update my permissions. As you can see, now the agent is able to access 4 documents. The fourth document is not something I had access to in the past. And not only did I get access to that fourth document dynamically without updating the screen, the agent was also able to generate this new insights based on that premium content. And this is something you should be able to accomplish in your company as well, if you are building an AI/ML product. And the way you would be able to accomplish this is by adopting a system similar to what I've shown here. Let me go back to this. If you have a reback kind of system implemented in your company, a good example is Auth0 FGA. You can go search for it. It's basically a managed service that Okta sells to its customers. You can define a bunch of the product will let you fully centralize the permission model away from your core web application, and you can dynamically update permissions. And as part of your RAG workflow, you would have to call this external API and fetch the documents. And whenever you are updating these permissions, the API would give you the new documents it would have access to, and then you would use that to filter those documents in your RAG pipeline, and suddenly those documents would be made accessible to the user. So this is where identity ties up to your RAG experience. Permission model is really important. If you are not focusing on it, either you are going to give away a ton of information that you don't want to give, um, or you might end up vector databases, and all these databases are not cheap. You might end up getting a lot of bills which are unintended. So permissions are really important in that context. And I have another action here that I'm typing called buy 10 units of the stock when the PE ratio has reached certain value. And as you can see, this is a really sensitive action. Buying a stock, like for example, let's say I want to buy stocks of Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire is currently trading at north of $1,000, right? Buying 10 stocks means 10K deduction from my bank account, which is not a small amount for a lot of people, right? And for a privileged action like this, you want to make sure the agent is looping the human right before the action gets executed. And this is also where identity comes into picture. You want to make sure a privileged action like this is able to, when this happens, you want to make sure the user is prompted about it via a notification saying, hey, this particular XYZ application is asking you to authenticate, and this is the reason why it wants you to authenticate. And ideally, once I type this off, I'm going to go and do my own business. I'm going to do my day job or do whatever I want to do within my day. But let's say at 3 p.m., this PE ratio was reached and I want this executed. I'm not sitting in front of my computer to monitor this chat, right? I might be in my gym or I might be in a meeting or doing something else. So I want to get a notification on my mobile, letting me know that this authentication request has been initiated. And here also identity comes into picture. You want to be able to send an authentication request on mobile apps like Duo or Okta or any authenticator you might have on your mobile. And this is something you want to invest in as a company. And then once you click on the authenticate or approve within your authenticator, the agent is going to get your approval in the form of a token. And all of this again is working under the hood using concepts like OpenID Connect, JOT, and all these concepts we spoke about in the past. This is where they come back into the and tie back into the knowledge. So yeah, I think I will pause here. This was the demo I had. I'll go back to the slides. If there are any questions, I think I want to spend some time taking questions now, and beyond that, I can go back and cover the rest of the content. Yeah, if I
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Dilip. It was incredibly insightful. I've learned a lot. For those of you on Zoom, feel free to either raise your hand or unmute yourself to ask Dilip a question. For those of you on LinkedIn, if you put it in the chat, I am picking them up there and I will share them with Dilip. So let's give it a minute unless anybody in Zoom here wants to ask something.
Thank you, Scott.
All right, Dilip, I think you're good
Cool.
to continue. You've just got yes comments in LinkedIn.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I think I'll probably share this deck for you to be able to access. There are some checklists I've put together for you, but there is a little more material I want to cover, which is more important. So let me walk through that. For a lot of companies, AI is an inflection point, and the identity landscape has also evolved at different inflection points throughout its years. There were Originally there were mainframes which you could access using simple passwords, and passwords were probably invented around that time. And then as PC networks evolved, and the enterprises got systems that are interconnected with each other, LDAP was invented. LDAP was again back in the day big deal in the enterprise ecosystem. And as the internet boomed and a ton of applications came into picture, single sign-on and protocols like SAML came into picture. And when iPhone was launched, social login, OAuth were invented. And lately, there have been a lot of phishing and data breaches in the companies. and companies wanted to focus on phishing resistant MFA, multi-factor authentication. That's where 502 came into picture. And when Web3 came in, the identity world also evolved to meet the needs of verifiable credentials. So you are able, so that's now the Web3 world is about you own your data, right? I can have a certificate on my wallet and birth certificate. And if the department and if the DMV of CA wants to access that birth certificate, I would get a notification on my wallet asking if I would approve the DMV to access my birth certificate, and clicking yes would give access. And if I want to revoke it at a later point, that's something I have in my hand. So my data is in my control. That's verifiable credentials. Similarly, AI is an inflection point again for the identity world. There are a ton of gaps that are not being solved for, and being aware of those gaps will let you design your products and also accommodate for a roadmap where the ecosystem is itself evolving. So I want to spend a little time exposing you to those details, and then I'll conclude this session. The One of the primary gaps is today, from a protocol perspective, there is no easy way to uniquely identify an agent in the context of the human user who is interacting with that agent. You would probably have to invent something out of the box to support this, but none of the protocols like OpenID Connector, OAuth, support this requirement. If you are trying to understand which human user created this particular log or not log, created this particular interaction between my agent and a downstream system, that's not something you would be able to easily answer today, unless you are inventing something out of the box and outside of the protocol and doing something custom within your company. And the second most important problem is the agent to agent communication is agent to agent registration continues to be a static process. As in, today, when you want two agents to interact, or if you want an agent to interact with the downstream system, relationship between those two systems. And that is a manual process today. And I don't think that process will work well for the agentic ecosystem, because agents are expected to probably autonomously act in some cases, and also, or they could be your sparring partner, and they could be taking a bunch of actions on behalf of you. And if you need an agent to be manually set up every time it needs access to a new data source or a new system, then the process is not going to scale. So there is no protocol that exists today where you can dynamically register two systems. That's something the tech ecosystem is trying to come up with. That's a valid known gap as of today. And yeah, I think I would say these are the most important things that come to my mind. I think I'll let you read the other two. Um, the part I wanna kind of expose you to is which standards are adopting to the challenges I just spoke about. OAuth is coming up with have already come up with a new standard, which is OAuth 2.1. They are trying to, they're still coarse grained access. They're still tuned to coarse grained access, and the adaptability is limited for agents. So I think OAuth will evolve a little further in this context, especially to adopt the AI agents. There is a dynamic client registration process that is also getting baked as part of the OAuth grant negotiation and auth protocol. I think this is going to be really helpful. And there is also specs that are being proposed to embed the human attributes into the agentic session. I think some of the problems I spoke about earlier, those are also being looked at. Some other protocols I would recommend you look at in your free time would be SPIFFE and OpenID for verifiable credentials, and SCIM extensions for provisioning and deprovisioning non-human accounts. Let me take a pause here. I think I'm done with my session. The concluding statement I had for this was Um, uh, when it comes to identity and AI, I think the plane is being built while it's in flight, and it's actually a true statement. You have to be aware of all the limitations out there and design and accommodate for the things that are going to come in your roadmap. So I will leave this session here. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dilip. It's a little bit of a terrifying thought that it's still being built while it's in place.
Yeah.
Um, but thank you for all the insights. We did have a few questions that came in on LinkedIn. I know we are at time though, and people do have to run off to meetings in their job. If you do have time, otherwise we could
Sure.
help
I can
answer them
spend
on
a few
LinkedIn.
minutes.
Okay.
Let's review them.
Uh,
Uh,
Do you want me to read them out for the
yeah,
people
sure,
who
sure.
don't have access? So, how are you thinking about keeping an inventory tracking identities for a multitude of AI agents deployed in an enterprise infrastructure?
Yeah. So this goes back to identity governance, which we spoke about earlier. A lot of enterprise companies have already invested in identity governance systems like SailPoint, Ping, Okta, and these systems are capable of discovering what non-human accounts exist in your company. So they can kind of sprawl through your AWS, GCP, or whatever cloud ecosystem you have. And they are able to figure out where do these non-human accounts exist, where are they provisioned. And in a lot of companies, they have defined processes for how to provision a non-human account, but in a lot of companies, it's also not defined. So, depending on how your ecosystem is set up, you want to be able to either invest in those auto discovery capabilities, or you want to, if you are a really small company, I think enforcing a process is really easy. So, that's something you want to be very cognizant of early on in your product development process. Yeah.
Thank you. And we had one more question. How is AI changing the identity security infrastructure?
Yeah. Identity security is I think the infrastructure word is throwing me off, but I'll share the answer based on what I understood it. Identity world is also adopting AI as a consumer, as in a lot of identity config experience and information discovery experience was traditionally web-based. We are starting to see a chat kind of interface coming up to discover identity information. That's one area where AI is getting into the identity space. The other area is AI is also being leveraged for in the access governance space. Traditionally, a lot of access governance was suffering from poor data quality, and AI is able to actually come in and enhance the data quality a lot. It is able to look at what kind of access the user has, and it is able to tell if the user has a high risk profile or a low risk profile. All of these attributes are something we are able to define with these LLMs that have come into the picture. Earlier we used to generate errors that made no sense to the user. Sometimes now we are able to give some rich and meaningful errors through LLMs in the picture, etc. There are a lot of ways AI is being leveraged in the identity space, actually. I've only touched a few scenarios here. There are a lot of more scenarios. Yeah. Next question is that I hope I answered the question in the right way, but if not, please feel free to chime in. Is the identity persistent when agents are restarted? Yes, typically identity is persisted. The agentic identity should ideally be tied to a non-human account today. So it is persisted. Yeah. But there is no standard that is out there that says it should be persisted. It really depends on how your company is implementing it. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dilip. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with our community at PM Exercises. Um, And you're getting a lot of thank yous. I know we're past the hour, so people are definitely running to their next meetings. If people wanted to find you, I suppose LinkedIn is the place.
Yeah, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to help you out with any of the AI or identity problems you have within your product ecosystem, or just a casual chat. More than happy to. Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds wonderful. Just a reminder, everybody, that again, if you want to sign up for AI courses, come to Product Management Exercises. We'd love to help you out. And stay tuned. We will have more sessions before the end of this year. Thank you again, Dilip, for all of your insight, the information, and for spending the time with us.
Thank you.
And the deck will be shared. Is that correct, Dilip? We've gotten a couple
Yes.
questions so far. Okay.
Should I share a link with you, Ida? Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I'll
And
do that.
everybody else, we'll put it on our product management exercises community sessions. You'll see the link there, and it's also going to be on YouTube.
Sounds good.
Um, so thank you so much, everybody, for joining, and enjoy the rest of your Friday afternoon. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
This is Harita, and I am Director of Automation at Eversana. And in my past, I have seen AI projects, generative AI projects, but there was always some level of discomfort when approaching with questions to the engineers and architects, is because just a lack of understanding of the technology. Well, I used to read online, learn some, do some self-learning, but it's hard to retain until you start putting something together on your own. And that's what the cohort helped us do is, introduce all the concepts, and we could go back and read more about it. Plus, applied immediately towards the end of the cohort. And that gave us much more confidence in talking to our engineers, our data people, and even trying to analyze a problem and see how a machine learning solution would fit in here. So huge shout out to Bijan and Kai for helping us in there. And I can personally vouch for this cohort because the kind of confidence that I got have now before compared to what I had before cohort is like night and day. I understand the concepts more. I know what I should ask my engineer. So highly recommend it.